What role does trust or lack thereof trust play in the decline in CP giving, and how can churches and SBC entities restore it? What do you think?
Oh, it's monumental. It's monumental because the only way, in my opinion, and that's what you asked, to restore trust is to be transparent. This is what we did. And not even an explanation of why necessarily, but this is what we did. This is where your money went. And from here on out, this is what we're going to do. Exactly. And that, we asked for, if I remember right, we asked for an audit. I'm not sure if it was a forensic audit, but it was an audit. And we were told no. Well, excuse me, if a member of our congregations comes to the finance committee and says, hey, I think we need to have an audit of the church books, are you going to tell them no? I mean, and so I don't understand if the seminaries have to give an account and every other entity in the convention has to give an account, why doesn't the North American Mission Board? And in my opinion, if they want their money, if they want us to restore giving to that entity, then they're going to have to tell us what's going on and tell us the truth.
Yes.
That's just, and it pains me. It pains me that they're not just doing it, but they're being allowed to do it. A 35-year decline in CP giving. Wow, that's
significant.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, that's significant. Yeah.
And it's just like in churches as we've pastored them. If something's not working, don't we have a responsibility to look at it and look with our leadership and say, this isn't working? Or do we do, we've said it before, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. And Dr. Kelly, you were talking about Dr. Kelly's book, but I think it's the second chapter of his book, he makes a comment about Dr. Aiken in addressing the seminary, Southeastern Seminary, and used the comment, Great Commission resurgence. But he defined it, according to Dr. Kelly, and I've read what he wrote, in a completely different light than what we heard in Orlando. And I've read those 12 axioms that Dr. Aiken spoke of, and it is vast, it's worlds different than what we were told. And the interesting thing about that, one more thing about that, Dr. Kelly, back before the Great Resurgence Task Force, and I'm not sure if I think he was still a professor at New Orleans, if I remember right. He wrote a paper or wrote an article about the decline of the Cooperative Program and of Southern Baptist churches. I mean, and that went as a part of this second book, but he wasn't wrong. Everything, almost point for point, everything Dr. Kelly said has come true, and it was accurate, almost to the word. And and everybody, and there were a group of people who said he committed political suicide and he did this and he did that. But you know what? I have a tremendous amount of respect for him for saying the truth. And that's all I want from Kevin. Tell me the truth, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is asking for a checkbook register.
No.
A checkbook register, but I think that there needs to be some clarity. And this last annual meeting, when Messenger came up and asked Kevin Ezell, speaking of NAM, but asked Kevin Ezell about what the messengers had asked of the North American Mission Board in the previous annual meeting. And he just said, well, we just took that basically as a suggestion and we're not going to do that. And it was about, finding the help of churches beyond their funding when their funding goes out, that kind of thing. And they said, yeah, we're just not going to do that. And it's like, so it seems like we've got a systemic problem. A great system set up for the cooperative program, trustees in place, great system, trustees with our entities, et cetera, unless your trustees are not actually doing the job.
That's right.
And that's what we've seen over and over. And the trustees are told by lawyers and the entities, you don't speak out about this. You don't speak to this because you could make the entity that they're representing liable for something that the entity is not approved to do. So even if they disagree, they are told to keep their mouth shut as such, kind of have a gag order.
I do have a question, and I'm curious if you guys noticed this or have observed this. I heard Dr. Orr speak at a state convention meeting last year. And it'd been a long time since I'd heard him speak, but I was going to talk with him afterwards, and he left. I mean, he quit speaking and he walked straight out the back door and was gone. But the thing that I came away with is how angry he seemed to be at pastors and at churches about their CP giving and their some of those. I mean, his countenance. He wasn't preaching boldly in his report. He was, in my opinion, strictly in my opinion, in capital letters, he was angry. And I was concerned about that, because I understand him being concerned about the bottom line and the budget and all that. I get it. But if you're going to be angry, put the anger where be angry at the right guys. Because, and especially in the state in which he was speaking, they suffered greatly through some of the stuff that's happening from the North American Mission Board. That particular state was impacted because it was a pioneer state, and it was impacted greatly. And so that just concerned me. It bothered me. And that's one of the things I was going to ask him. I was going to address, and I too have called him and I've emailed him and I haven't heard anything back from him. And I'm not upset with him. I don't know why his countenance is the way it is. I get the frustration. There's not a one of us as a pastor that hasn't been frustrated and hasn't said things in a tone that we wish, wow, I shouldn't have said it quite that way. But he's not helping the cooperative program by doing
I had a lot of respect for Dr. Iorg for a lot of years, and actually invited him to come be a keynote speaker for our equipping conference we had when I was in Michigan. And then after I came to Atlanta to work with the Church Planting Network, we had him come in, and he was a keynote speaker for a big fundraising banquet we had here. So I had utmost respect, and he did a phenomenal job with both those times. And every other time I'd heard him speak, he'd done a great job. So just something has happened. And I did hear just today, just kind of a thread that he was looking for some way to get out, some way to move on. Rhett Burns, a pastor in South Carolina, wrote an article in the Center for Baptist Leadership saying that, hey, he needed to resign. That's starting to be a little bit of a chime there. I'm not necessarily calling for his resignation, but I really am calling, personally to say, look, you need to listen to the people in the pew. Stop listening to, cultural analysis of what's happening in the world. Why go back and look? Why have churches started negatively designating? What is their reason? What is their purpose? Listen to guys like you and me who are in normative sized churches. And I understand none of our churches are giving at a level that if we stop giving all together, they're going to go, oh no, the cooperative program's going to die. And the problem is that's how they view it. When in the past, the cooperative program was looked at, look, it's not about how much you give, it's the level of sacrifice. And if we're all sacrificing, we all can do together moving forward what we couldn't do alone. And what is happening now is people are putting on the brakes. They're saying, whoa, hey, stop, hang on. We need to know how you're using our mission money. Our people are sacrificing. We've got little widows and widowers that are giving out of their Social Security checks and they're tithing, and they want to know their money is being well spent. Why can't we get some transparency? It seems to be a huge issue.
And that's the key, Bobby, is that in the past, yes, I've had difference of opinions and thought maybe they could be doing stuff better, but I've never questioned or wondered how the money was being spent. That was never a question in my mind until very recent history, and within the last decade. So it isn't about not being satisfied with the church planting movement versus evangelism or whatever the case might be. It's simply about being transparent and just being open with us. If it's not a problem, then just be open, and I think that would settle this whole issue.
Right, and I'm with both of you. I don't want him to resign. That's not what my conversation is with him. Back when, and I don't know if you guys have like children, Baptist children's homes in your community. I know Georgia does because I was in that state. But when I was in Florida, my mother was on staff at the Florida Baptist Children's Homes in Miami, and I did some capital giving campaign work with them. And one of the things that a man by the name of Dr. Jim Souls told me one time, he said, let me tell you something. He said, this organization was built on WMU groups and Baptist men's groups all over the state of Florida that gave, $50 here and $75 there. And he said, in any capital giving campaign, I'd much rather have 118 or 120 WMU groups, Baptist men's groups, any group like that in the local church to give than I had to go and do $1 million donor that's going to give me $1 million once. And I wonder sometimes if these gentlemen don't need to look at that. I mean,
well, the reality is part of the shift that happened with the GCR, and part of what was driving that, I said it a little earlier, part of what was driving that were these large mega churches that were not wanting to give where they couldn't control the money. So they were designating to Annie Armstrong, to IMB, Lottie Moon, or whatever, and they were designating huge sums of money, but they weren't getting credit for being cooperative because their cooperative program giving was at 1% of their undesignated gifts. And so by changing to Great Commission giving, now all this is blanketed together. This is all cooperative giving, and they are still in control. And so now that's led us from that point back in 2011 now to where we are today, on top of the lack of transparency and everything else.